Okay, and we're back. So, this is a Mask at Midnight Part 2. Just carrying on from where we left off, basically. So, where we left off was, it was afternoon. Let's fast forward a little bit to afternoon going on evening now. And the mask, the titular mask in the town of Pusey, is in full swing, celebrating the coming of age of the young Lord Tacitus. Um, and to celebrate his coming of age, a great big celebration, a masked kind of gala ball of sorts is being put on, and the whole town's been brought out. The upper classes, the middle classes, even the workers, all of them coming out to sort of celebrate and dance and revel together. Well, more or less together. I mean, as we said, there's a pavilion on the outskirts, which is for the more up and up. That's where the servants' quarters are, so to speak. And you've got the actual theatre troupe kind of milling around as well. So you've got Esdarine, I should say, stage manager, who's sort of, as the day goes on, I suppose, getting more and more frantic to get everything prepared and set up in time. So let's fast forward a little bit to the game.
I'm imagining that as these folks all arrive, there's going to be somewhere off to the side where they've got all the carriages and horses, unless I don't imagine they're all walking in.
No, absolutely not. I imagine the proles are just wandering in from town, but the more well-to-do would be coming on horseback or even on a carriage of some kind. Probably the most well-to-do, either, well, the lord himself probably wouldn't make an appearance until later, but anyone who's sort of the equal, maybe even a lord of another town who's coming over, they might be ones who are coming in on some kind of horseless carriage or other kind of mechanism. Some of this strange magic known as mechanisms. So yeah, there'd be, and I imagine they'd all be stabled in a more or less the same space on the outskirts of the revelry.
I wonder what those are worth.
I wonder indeed.
It
Well,
occurs to me that
absolutely,
probably all this sort of stuff around the periphery is going to be at least as valuable as anything in anybody's pocket.
absolutely. Well, the question is, how do you, clear off with it?
Yes,
So
what do you do with it?
let's sort of set the scene as kind of the first of these three tableaus, these three amazing kind of set pieces that the stage manager is putting out for the people to see. So the idea is that there's this kind of sort of semi-artistic piece celebrating whatever, and it's kind of the kick-off point. There's kind of some of the people are standing stock still, and others are kind of acting and dancing and prancing around them, and that's sort of the kick-off and the impetus for the others to kind of join in the dance around them. So it's a sort of semi-formalized affair, and then in between these tableaus, there's just general revelry, people running about, people playing and enjoying themselves and whatnot. So during the first tableau, there's the central area has been setting the scene of it looks like kind of basically the scene of the empire, the empire as it stands today, the empire at its prime, this country in the peak of an industrial revolution. Where are you guys while this first tableau is going on? There's people everywhere. This is a packed out field. This is a full-on festival here. You can't move for people, but you can move, but you got to move through crowds to get wherever you want to get. There isn't a place where there isn't more people around you, but there are several places that you could be. You could be together. You could be apart. You could be in the sort of the vicinity of where the servants are, this pavilion. You could be mingling with the up and ups. You could be moshing with the crowds. You could be stealing a horse. You could be anywhere. So Oliver, let's start with you.
Well, I have to pause 1 second to evict a cat, I'm afraid.
Okay, fair enough. Cadius, let's start with you.
Sure. So, um, hmm. I think I would be more or less trying to not attract attention at this point,
Okay.
especially with my previous record of being spotted at the tavern and also failing to impress the person running the Ezradine.
Yes.
What was the name? I think I had it wrong there.
No, Esdarine, Ezra
Ezdarine, yeah.
Either is. Let's say it's interchangeable.
So I'm probably trying to avoid notice to some extent, saying maybe if there's an area with some trees or an area that's more out of the way, if it's a park,
Hmm.
and just sort of watching things from the outskirts for now.
Okay.
and
Just keeping an eye on things and trying to take
waiting for the
stock.
right moment to step in.
Okay, fair enough. Sounds like you're discerning realities there. You're not specifically, well, correct me if I'm wrong, because it sounds like there's one of two things you're trying to do there. Either the focus is you're trying to keep a low profile, in which case there isn't a move, so to speak, you're just trying to keep a low profile, or in the process of keeping a low profile, you're also sort of taking stock of the situation, and that might be an opportunity for you to discern realities and ask questions
Yeah,
and talk to
definitely.
everyone
I
else
think
if
I'm
you want.
definitely watching what's going on with this study die.
Okay, fair enough. So
So I'm
you've made
gonna,
your way to like a as a quieter place as possible, like around a tree or so. Are you actually literally up a tree?
if there's something that is large enough where I would not be noticed in it, it depends on how well trimmed and how grown they are here.
They're pretty well sort of kept because this is like a very posh park in a well-to-do area of town.
Sure,
There
sure.
would be trees, but well, I suppose two things. It would at least be a move. You'd be defying danger, I would say, to actually get up the tree without being spotted because there's people everywhere and you're climbing a tree in the middle of a
Yep.
crowd. Um, and the trees themselves, although they offer a good vantage point, wouldn't offer a great amount of cover.
No, so
So
I'll stay on the ground and I'll be sort of circling, but not trying to appear to be
sure,
you know
okay, cool. Well, let's see how well you do
conspicuous.
with that then. So I want you to go ahead and roll plus wisdom for me and
Sure.
discern
So
if you're discerning
that's
realities. You
a
get plus one bonus
0.
points. Okay.
That's a 0, so it's 11.
11. Wow, brilliant. Got a high roller here today. So,
Sure.
with an 11, you get to ask 3 questions from that list before. Um, so I'll just link that again for you here.
Yep. So what should I be on the lookout for here?
What should you be on the lookout for? Okay. So as the first tableau is kind of going on, you're seeing a little ways in the distance here because you've had to sort of distance yourself from the madding crowds a little bit to get to the place where you can keep a low profile. But you've got a pretty good view of the event nonetheless because it's on kind of a raised platform. The idea is the whole everyone's going to be able to see it. So you're keeping a good eye on the tableau. You can't not really. And the first thing that you should be on the lookout for is that there's a lot of kind of jugglers and dancers and outright revelers, more of the more jester type. And one of them is juggling fire. One of them's juggling kind of the sticks on fire. And he's dangerously close to one of the pennants. And something you should be on the lookout for. You're too far away really to do anything about it, but you would be pretty sure that you should be on the lookout for something catching fire in the very near future.
Okay. Sure. So that's 1.
So that's one.
And
And
that's a good
remember,
bit of
when you're
start.
discerning realities, you can take +1 forward when you work off the answers.
Sure. So what's not what it appears to be here?
What's not what it appears to be? That's an excellent question. So we've got from where you are, you would be able to sort of see the stage in front of you, about to catch fire. You would see the servants' quarters. Let's say that's off towards the sort of left-hand side. You would have the massive sweep of just crowds of all sorts in all sorts of bright and garish kind of their finest, their fine colours and silks and whatnot, mingling with kind of the rough and ready farmers in kind of nice but homespun kind of woolen robes and that sort of thing. And everyone's kind of mingling and dancing and more or less enjoying themselves. But one thing that you think you might need to be on the lookout for is a kind of a crowd away from it. So everyone else is taking part in this sort of semi-formalized dance. You can see people kind of spinning round the sort of the central axis of the stage in this kind of circular dance as they're kind of taking on partners and moving back and forth. But there's almost a block in that because there's one group in the center who are kind of the party poopers. They're not dancing. They're just watching the ceremony and not doing a whole lot. Their backs are to you because they're watching and you're watching and they're in front of you, but they're definitely not dancing and they definitely don't look like they're enjoying themselves. And in terms of something to be on the lookout for, it's probably this group. Now, the group themselves seem to consist of, although it's hard to tell because of the crowds running through, but you definitely spot a very large, broad human in very well dressed uh, kind of silks and whatnot. He looks like a noble. Um, and the people around him have actually got very similar clothes to you. You know, you've got what have you got? You've got what are your clothes like? Do you have kind of
I think they're
barbarian leathers on still, or are you of more regal bearing now?
no, I don't think it's very regal, but I think it would just be wearing very simple, like a linen pants and like a regular basic tunic, like not necessarily something that's worn or rough looking, but certainly
Hmm.
nothing special. Very nondescript.
And is that what you brought with you from the mountains? Is that sort of the wear that would be common to your people?
No, I don't think it would be.
Okay. So what would be? Because the people around this guy who aren't dancing, they're wearing it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's probably a mixture of rough fabric, leather, and fur.
Hmm. Any particular sort of leathers? Is there a particular creature that of the peaks which you used to fight a lot? You know, wolves or giant
Uh,
goats or something more mythical?
Leather would be deer hide.
Deer hide.
Um, the fur itself would probably be wolf, or if it was a particularly notable warrior, it would be some sort of like a giant, like a dire wolf or something.
Sure. Well, the man himself has got although he's dressed in very fine bearing, he has like a wolf's head
Hmm.
cape, like draped over his shoulders, kind of almost on top of the fancy clothes. It was all designed to come together nicely, and it could, well, from this distance you can't tell for sure, but it could be like fake. It could have just been like, it could just be a big dog, just done up to look shaggy. You know, you might have taken it from the other nobles, so he might just be doing it up. But for the fact that he's also surrounded by people who you don't immediately recognize, but you do recognize them as wearing kind of similar clothes as from your homeland. You know,
Hmm.
they're using stag horns as kind of braces and like chunks in what seems to be armor for their pauldrons, and their leather is very much of the kind of, it's not homespun wools, it's toughened leather. Um, and any other kind of ideas in terms of, well, I'll gloss over it, but any other ideas in terms of culturally where these folk might have come from in terms of kind of color of their skin or color of their hair, anything like that, um, these guys have got it.
Sure, sure.
So that's your second question. So something's about to catch fire, and you got some old friends in town. What's your third question?
Oh boy.
Why me?
um,
Afraid that's not on the list.
so we've got certainly ourselves. We've got the nobles. We've got the servants. We've got the person running the show, and then we have this sort of guy who's presenting himself as maybe the leader or the boss of these guys. So who's really in control here?
Who's really in control in terms of the entire ceremony?
Well, of the situation, not necessarily the ceremony itself, but
Situation. Right,
yeah.
right. Good point. Okay, cool. So the situation as it occurs, who's really in control here? Well, given that something's about to catch fire, the stage manager isn't. Given that this is before the kind of the official reveal of young Tacitus, he isn't, nor is his family. They are not in a position to take control when whatever happens happens. Arguably, then, by process of elimination, that leaves the Mr. Wolf's head, quote unquote,
Sure,
name to be
sure.
announced, but we'll call him Wolf's head for now. That kind of leaves Mr. Wolf's head as the guy who's kind of not so much in control, but in the best position to take control, if you see what I mean. Like, no one's in control as of this exact moment. We're kind of in bullet time right now, because no one's in control as of this moment. We're just taking things in, but something's about once we come out of bullet time, something's going to catch fire, all hell's going to break loose, and these guys are clearly uh, able to take stock of that situation and do something about it. And there you go, and that's where you're at. You are probably, to give you an idea of scale, I won't bother doing it on the map for now, but to give you a sense of scale, you are probably, I would say, far distance, which would be kind of, you can't see the whites of their eyes, but you're certainly within, say, shouting distance of these folk. Um, you're within shouting distance of this group of Mr. Wolfshead and company, and then they're probably within, say, 10 to 15 feet of the stage itself. So they're pretty close. And that's where they're at, and that's where you're at, and that's what's going on with you right now. Oliver, where are you at right now?
Well, if there's any drink flowing, the best way to calm your nerves before a night of skullduggery is to make sure you have some of that. So
There's plenty of drink. There's drink going for free. There are people wandering around with trays, and it is not difficult to grab a drink. Roll
I'll
plus
have,
con.
some kind of cup of mulled wine or something, I imagine.
Excellent. Roll plus con.
Oh. Okay. Oops, I've lost my die roller. Yes. 6. I'm going to
6.
level up. The
You are leveling a go-go, my friend. I probably wouldn't have made a fighter or a paladin or someone of... Well, I think it's very much your situation that prompted me to make you roll, because it's a combination of... It's not so much like, is one drink going to knock you out? Because it won't. You're a seasoned enough adventurer that one drink is going to be enough. The question is, are you going to stop at one? Because, yearly celebration, free bar, or at least close enough to free for a thief like yourself. So, yeah, in the process of you getting from A to B, wherever A is and B is, I'm assuming A is roughly in the center and B is, well, we'll find out in a second. But in the process of getting there, you're pretty slaughtered. You grab a drink, you manage to down it quickly, you manage to find a second drink. Yep, that's gone pretty quickly. And by the time you've got to the third place, by the time you've got to wherever it is you're getting to, the horses or whatever, there is a third drink in your hand that you have just pilfered in a fine silver goblet. You've just pilfered it from pretty much from the back of someone else. It's got some kind of wine-like liquid in it. It tastes lovely. You're having a great time. So everything's great. Mark experience, everything's great. Everything's great, everything's fine. Where are you? Do you even know? Let's find out.
Well, my sense was to sort of get the mood of the crowd by wandering through it. Are people minding their purses? Do they have purses?
Okay.
Are they vigilant, or has it been kept away? No likely pickpockets about, so that nobody's really very careful. I want to get a sense of how drunk they are.
Sure.
And I'm milling my way over as I do this towards the last known location of Cadius.
Okay, excellent. Of Cadius. Okay.
Yes.
Sure thing. So you're kind of going from kind of near the stage, I suppose, towards roughly the outskirts and kind of milling your way through. And while you're doing it, you're getting a sense of... it's not so much discern realities, because there's quite a specific question there, isn't there? Of, can I steal some pockets? Can I pick some pockets here? Is that about right?
I'm not intending to pick any on my way over. I'm really just trying to find out, are people as wary as they might be on a market in a big town, or is this people are vacationing and their guard is down?
Okay, fair enough. Well, why don't you go ahead and defy danger using your wisdom? The downside of defying danger, because you are sort of surveying the area. Again, a thief could sort of do this, but a fighter couldn't, if that makes sense. It's the same move, but in the context of Dungeon World, we're going to assume that a thief can do things that a fighter can't, and vice versa. So yeah, it totally makes sense that a thief can be surveying the area. What wouldn't make sense is... you have an 11. Excellent. I'm going to drop that to a 10, because I'm also going to say that as wise and as learned as you are, you do have 3 drinks in you. So I forget the name of what the -1 wisdom ability is right now, but whatever it's called, you got it. So you're currently at -1 wisdom, and basically until you sober the hell up. So you got a 10, but you got a 10. 10's a 10. 10's a fantastic pass. You definitely get what you wanted, and you avoid any kind of repercussion. So you want to get a sense of how well these guys are keeping an eye on their pockets in the middle of all this revelry. And the answer is not much. I mean, some of the nobles are more guarded, because they're kind of milling around with the riffraff, and they're like, oh, well, want to keep a distance a little bit. But the drinks are flowing, and everyone's having a good time, and most people are just kind of, going with it. And in fact, because you did roll so well, I'm going to add an extra point as well. You realise that not only are people pretty much going with it, you also realise that you're not the only one looking, if you see what I mean. There are other people in the crowd who are also looking to pick a pocket or two. no one specific, but just like you catch the odd gaze of, you're everyone else is dancing and you're kind of moving your way through the crowd in sort of this vague motion dancing, but your eyes are like down to waists and pockets and whatnot, and wine glasses, obviously. And as you're kind of scanning the area like this, you also notice other people kind of doing the same. They're also kind of trying to sneak through the crowd. So you might have some competition in terms of pickpockets there.
Oh,
Anyway.
fantastic.
You're there, you got a drink, your speech is slightly slurred, but hey, Cadius, how's it going? Yay!
Cadius, your talents are wasted up in this tree. Oh, you're not in the tree. For a minute, I thought you were in a tree. I don't know why.
I'm probably like leaning on a tree.
How many have you had, man?
Your talents are wasted over here. First of all, they're giving away the drinks, and they're giving away the silver.
I don't think that's free. I think it's supposed to stay here.
Silver cup is one weight. Feel free to put it in your pack.
But
But more importantly, this is going to go up in flames.
what? I mean, that's the idea, isn't it?
No. I mean, look. And
At that moment, this errant streamer that you saw a second ago, sure enough, the guy's juggling, he's swerving, and then like a drunk guy jostles him, and he's like, "Hey, watch it!" One of the things gets flung up in the air and just catches the streamer, and the streamer goes up like anything, this kind of alcohol-soaked rag, basically, from all the revelry. And it goes up and it catches, and it basically takes to the stage. The stage doesn't like just explode into flames; it just catches fire. But the revelers are this theatre troupe are basically kind of caught in the flame a little bit, and obviously the party just kind of goes wah and kind of erupts into screams and who knows what else, and everyone starts basically flooding back towards you guys. What do you guys do?
I'm gonna soak it in for a couple of seconds, I think, just as I give it a good glassy stare.
Okay, Cadius?
so is this before the Lord had arrived or after?
Before the what? Sorry.
Before the Lord that they're celebrating, did he arrive yet?
Before. He's not even here
Okay.
yet.
He's not
He's
here.
gonna
Okay.
get a surprise.
Well, I was gonna say it's a good way to make a buck is to save a Lord's life, but So the people are
there
coming
may well
towards
be.
us.
I'll tell you something. There may well be other people.
Hmm?
There's such a crowd coming back. If you want to play hero, then the direction to go is towards the fire.
Sure. So I'm gonna nudge Oliver and say it's a good time to take advantage of this if you'd like, but I'm gonna go help some people, and I'm gonna run directly towards the fire and start grabbing, if anyone's injured or might get trampled or something. I'll try and keep an eye out for someone I can get out of the way.
You help people.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna
So-
hot-footed after him.
Awesome. So it sounds to me like you're kind of pushing your way, striking your way through the crowd. We'll do that part first, and that's
Yep.
going to be defying danger using strength, as you're pretty much just bashing people, shoulder charging people out the way to try and clear a bit of a path for yourself. And Oliver, you're aiding him.
I am. Also with strength.
You're just aiding him. So remember, when you aid, you add your bonds, which in this case obviously is +3.
Alright, so
Bear in mind as well, before I forget, your bonds are more than just words. At the end of the session, we're going to come back, and if these bonds have actually come up in play, then that means that they are what's called resolved, or they can be what's called resolved, which is that they are relevant. They have been kind of played out a little bit potentially. Yeah. So do keep half an eye on your bond. It's not the easiest thing to do in a game, especially if you haven't played a lot of Dungeon World before. But the good thing about having so many of your bonds is that there's a lot of opportunities for at least one of them to come up in play. So keep an eye on them and kind of play to those bonds a little bit when you're kind of making your ideas about what you're doing and making your moves. But for now,
I'm going to be aiding him by shouting in my loudest, clearest voice I can muster, "Fire! Fire!" from the direction he's running from, to try and disperse the crowd a little bit, if that has any effect.
it has.
Pretty noisy already.
Well, that's definitely told me how you're aiding him, and that sounds absolutely fine. So if you go ahead and roll plus your
Oh,
+3, oh dear, 4, 5, 6, 7, just as well you had so many bonds of him. Good. So you've got a +1 to your one, Cadius.
Sure.
Although that has put you in a little bit in the line of fire, Oliver. So, Oliver, you get, as you're saying, fire, fire, you're trying to kind of keep in his shadow and kind of shout and kind of cry kind of behind him, basically, as you go. But you're getting jostled by people who are kind of running back in pretty much a blind panic away from the stage at this point. So one of them kind of jolts you quite heavily. You've got a choice here. You can either skim out the way, but then actually, yeah, you know what? You can skim out the way, but that might leave some of your gear vulnerable. Or you can kind of take the blow and take a bit of damage with it.
Leave my gear vulnerable. Well, I look
Basically, you're kind of like as the kind of the Red Seas are parting around around Cadius the fighter. You're kind of in the wake of that, but you're on the edge of it. And as they kind of, as people are kind of pushed aside, they're trying to jostle past him and they jostle into you. Now you could kind of go askance, you know, you could kind of slide askance, but that is your knapsack kind of hanging out in a precarious way, especially since you already spotted a few other kind of similar pickpockets in the crowd. Or you could kind of try and keep your gear kind of a little bit under wraps, but that means you are going to have to be properly jostled and knocked aside from these people as you're.
I think my natural instinct is to wholeheartedly embrace jostling in the crowd. These are the kinds of things that bring us together and create work opportunities. So
Absolutely.
I'm going to go for the full jostle.
You're going to go for full. He's going full jostle. Full jostle. Okay.
I even need to put a hand into the other fellow's pocket if possible to brace myself.
Okay. Full jostle means that you're going to take. Where are my notes? You're going to take D4 jostling damage, just like that, because it's just like knocks and blows.
And I start with my max hit points, don't I?
Absolutely. So it's D4. You roll it as you've seen there, and your armor counts as normal because it's just people just knocking you.
I don't think I'd be wearing my armor at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Your armor is not on you, and you take 3 damage.
Yep, I've taken it.
Cool. Okay, so that's what's sort of happening to you. But in the meantime, you have the two of you have kind of forced a wedge. You've forced your way to kind of the front here, and the stage is in danger of catching alight because now everyone's kind of running and panicking, and no one's doing anything about it. So although the stage itself, it's wood, but it's heavy wood. It's going to take a while to catch. But without anyone doing anything and people running about and no water in sight or anything like that, it's going to catch because it's wood.
Not near the seaside at all, then?
Well, you are, but you're not on the coast right now. You're probably half a mile away from the seaside. Unless one of you wants to spontaneously evoke some kind of weather witch powers, the seaside isn't in the best place to help you. It's 20 minutes down the road. So that's where the seaside is at. There's a few options, I suppose, that come to my mind. You could try and rally some people to kind of form a chain. There would be. I mean, it's not as if there's no water anywhere. There's water, there's wine, there's all sorts of liquids, right? But you're going to have to kind of do it pronto. Whatever you're going to do, you have to do it pronto. You also notice, I'm going to tell you this for free without discerning realities, that the actors are not moving. They are really committed to their art. The ones who are kind of standing still, their tableau scene, they're still forming this kind of scene of kind of proud imperial might, which is this kind of celebration they were doing earlier of like, yay, our country's great and we make cool steampunk shit and all this sort of stuff. And they're still doing it even as the stage is catching a light around them, you know. So they are also at risk. And wouldn't you know it, that little halfling is closest to the flames and she's there, but there's like sweat beading on her brow. The stage manager.
Oh boy, they're very dedicated, I guess.
Absolutely. So you're there at the front.
Cadius, forward! Come on. This is sort of chaos where we do our best work. Let's help some people in the best possible sense.
Well, you mean yourself, right?
I think it is mutual aid, but come on. Let's help while the flames are burning and pockets remain unpicked.
Okay, so what do you do? Beyond saying, "Yay, let's do something heroic." What's the heroic thing that you do?
If there's anybody who has stumbled, have we broached the actual tide of people coming?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so then I want to see the scene of destruction. Has anyone fallen?
Yeah, a few people have fallen. In fact, there's one quite portly gentleman, quite rich in kind of a heavy coat, saying, "Help, help! I can't get up, and I've lost my materials." Ah! And he's kind of falling. He's struggling to get up, but every time he tries to get up, he's being kind of buffeted aside by the intense heat and and or knocked aside by someone else running past him or something like that, and he's struggling to get away from the flames in time.
Okay. I'll run within about 5 or 6 feet of him and say, "Sir, throw me your jacket."
He looks up at you, looking down, his jowls quivering. He's like, "What? What do you mean? What for?"
Quick, there's no time to think. It'll save you.
He's like, okay, and he's like struggling to get his coat off. But he's got this like I say, it's like a heavy kind of a robe-like coat. And actually, as you see him kind of rolling around trying to get this thing off, you realise it's more of a formal thing, like a mayor's robe or something like that. And it's got a load of like straps and stuff at the front, and he's just basically rolling around in the grass, just trying to undo all the straps for his so-called hero to save him based on this case of him taking his coat off. In the meantime, he's rolling around like an idiot, and the flames are leaping ever closer. What do you do?
I'm going to seize the nearest edge of his garment then and give him a mighty heave as best I can back towards into the grass.
Fair enough. He's probably a little hair out of arm's reach because he's pretty close to the flames. So you can dive in. That'd be a dex roll to dive in, and then a strength roll to pull him, aka the coat, out of the flames.
Game.
Cadius, of course, you can help with that if you wish.
Actually, I think this time I'd be keeping my focus more on the actual fire.
Sure. Do you want to kind of discern realities again? Because the situation has changed here.
No, actually, I had a point to bring up, and then it sort of leads into the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't do the thing at the start about our heritage moves. We were supposed to roll our wisdom.
Of course we didn't. You're absolutely right. I apologise. So, yes, for anyone who's still watching, let's talk about heritage moves. So, at the start of a session, read the 1 hour and 45-minute mark, or when you invoke your rights of blood and tradition, whatever those might be, you get to roll plus wisdom. On a 10 plus, you hold 3. On a 7 to 9, you hold 2. On a 6 minus, you hold 1. This hold, which is just kind of a point of currency which you can spend as you see fit. You can spend this hold 1 for 1 to make one of your chosen heritage moves, or in this case, as we've called them, culture moves, based around Oliver, who's from Mercassa, this theocracy, and Cadius, who's from the Savage Lands, the Savage Peaks. Shall we just quickly mention your free? Each of you have got free moves here. So in the rules, as I've written them so far, I've offered the players 2 options. Just jumping out. Sorry, guys, just jumping out to just narrate it. I've offered 2 options. Either you can take 3 moves from one specific culture, or you can be kind of a half-caste, a half-breed, and take 2 moves, 1 each from 2 different cultures. And in this document, I've got, I think, maybe half a dozen cultures total for the Savage Peaks, this kind of Chalcedon, this steampunk imperium, Mercassa, Umberto, for anyone who's read my previous thing, Shadows of Umberto, and so on and so forth. So we've got Cadius he can unleash a rune of chaotic power, he can hear the wisdom of his ancestors, or he can call on a blood oath. And Oliver can track someone in a crowd, well, that's quite handy, utilize experimental technology, or inspire others to great or terrible feats, to kind of represent this kind of upbringing. So let's just jump out of the moves. I know we've got a text roll and a strength roll for you to roll in a moment, Oliver. We'll just put that on hold for the moment. If I can just have both of you roll your wisdom rolls now, and we'll see how much hold the 2 of you have.
I've rolled 7.
You rolled 7, so you get to hold 2, and it looks like you're holding 3, Alexander.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so just make a note of that somewhere that's useful on your character sheets.
Done.
Okay. Awesome. So
I'm leaping into the flames.
you're leaping
Hopefully
fire.
not into the flames. Near the flames.
Let's see how that goes. We will come back to you in a moment, Cadius. I know you're mentioning about wanting to use one of those heritage moves, so we'll do that in a second. But let's see how this dex roll turns out.
Wow. Well, I
It
don't know
turns
if
out-
alcohol affects me or if just the eerie calmness of 3
I,
cups.
the alcohol probably makes you braver, if anything. You're like, I want him, I'll help him, I'll save you. Maybe even doing the inverted commas at this stage. So yeah, you definitely dive in, and you've definitely grabbed the coat. Let's see if you can pull it and/or him out of it. So go ahead and make that strength roll for me.
Good. Okay.
No way! I did see it disappear and come back again. So yeah, that's fine.
No, it's -1, so it's only 11.
Oh, it's only 11. Oh well. So you can quite happily, you dive in, fueled on by your alcohol-fueled streak of heroism. You happily dive under the kind of the flames. You crawl down and you kind of wrap one of these sleeves. He's kind of half out of it. He's got like one sleeve free, and he's like, "Here, here," and he kind of hands the sleeve to you. It's like, "Here, have the coat. Now what?" And you're like, "Right, I've got this," and just drag him out of the flames by this sleeve. You basically kind of drag him and the coat under the line of the flames and just drag him well out the way of and out towards kind of the empty space away from the stage, away from the immediate kind of singeing fire of the flames. Just as his like the edges of his lapels are starting to smoke, no less. So
Sir,
you
it was well that you called out to me. It was a moment longer, and you'd have been consumed by the flames for sure.
absolutely, he's like, "Oh, absolutely, yes, oh," and he's kind of patting himself down and kind of taking stock of himself. But he's like got one hand like free, like his silk cuff is all like ripped up, his like silk sleeve is all ripped up and shreds, and he's trying to kind of get his tattered coat back on his shoulder and everything. Like, "Oh God, I could have died, sir. Thank you, my
Quite
friend."
astonishing, really. I mean, even in a moment where most men would be gripped by terror, you kept a calm demeanor, and you did what needed to be done. I'm most impressed. I swear there must be an air of leadership about you. Is that true?
So, just jumping in, where are you going with this? What are you trying to do with this gentleman?
I'm just trying to put him at ease with me.
Just
I
putting
mean,
him at
he's
ease.
had
Okay.
frazzled nerves. I'd like him to think himself as the hero
Yeah,
rather than
absolutely.
as someone who was just rescued. I
Cool.
want him to think that he's in control of the situation.
Okay, cool. So, and you're doing that by kind of just talking to and saying, "Oh, well, yes, well done, sir, well done, yes, well done for calling out to me," and kind of bigging him up a little bit. Have I got the
Exactly.
sense of that?
That's
Right.
it.
Cool. Um, Excellent. I don't think there's a role involved there. I think you just do it. So yeah, just like, yep, great. Yeah, he's helping you right. So, yes, you're right. He puffs himself up a bit. Yes, you're right. I did. It was rather good of me, wasn't it? It was quite exciting. Oh, I'm quite enjoying this. Yeah. And now he starts to actually get a bit more excited and energetic about it.
Well, I trust that I certainly won't be as capable as your regular valet, but if you wouldn't mind, I can assist you with some of those straps.
It's like, yes, that'll be quite satisfactory. And and now that he's actually up, he can kind of go. He starts fiddling about with them, and it's kind of your cue to say, "Oh no, allow me," because he's like, "Yeah, cool."
Indeed, allow me. Now, what are these buckles made of? These are quite fine. Anyway, I'm just making chat as I want to make sure that if he's got a purse on him, I want it to be in my pocket before the.
Go for it. Do you have a specific pickpocket move? You do. You have tricks of the trade. You have tricks of the trade. So when you pickpockets or disable traps, you roll plus dex.
Okay, something has happened ever since I've drunk the wine.
Wow. You have been supercharged. So you managed to do it. You quite happily pick his pockets. So you're like, "Oh yes, yes," and do you kind of buckle him back up and put him back in his formal robes?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. So in the process of picking him up and sorting him out, you manage to one of the buckles has sort of come loose, and you sort of say, "Oh, that seems well," and you kind of tidy it away in such a way that it doesn't look like it's under a roll of fat. So he can't actually even see the buckle to notice it's gone, and you just like, "Right, that's loose, pocketed." So you've got a nice silver buckle. That's not. It's let's just say it's extra coin. It's no weight, and it's just barter later. So let's just say that's worth D6 coin right off the bat.
Okay.
Actually, D6 plus 2. It's a nice silver buckle. And that's not all. But that's not all. While you're sort of helping him and kind of putting him in his pockets and putting him at ease, you find a nice hip flask. A lovely, bearing on the inside, you find this lovely silver hip flask. That you later find when you have a chance to study it is lovingly detailed in this kind of steampunkery motif, this kind of series of cogs and gears and kind of brass etchings, and is full of something, full of a nice liquid of some kind when you slosh it about. we'll see what happens as and when you need to drink it. For now, let's say that you add one ration, which is the kind of the contents of the drink, and yep, you can literally just like drink your troubles away if you need to in a dungeon. And
Short meat wolf.
the actual kind of hip flask itself is worth 1 weight, and that's going to be worth more, I think. I'd say that's going to be worth a good, let's say 6 plus d6 coin. So like minimum of 7 coin for like a nice little thing like that.
Well, the sixes have just.
Lovely.
I didn't write this dice roll, all right.
Absolutely. So there you go.
So I imagine myself, standing in the red flickering of the firelight, imagining sorry, not appraising, but admiring this in a slightly drunken moment of unguardedness.
Absolutely. What, right now, while he's still there?
No.
Yeah, I was going to say, just clarifying, yeah. So, yeah, you kind of pickpocket this thing from an interior pocket, and he, you've already squirreled it away, and he's like, oh, thank you. Oh, yes, very good, very good. And then he reaches for the hip flask. He's like, where's my hip flask? My word, some cat seems to have taken it. Oh, it must have rolled out on the fire. Never mind. There's plenty of drink going. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And he says, listen, and above and beyond all of this, he hands you a silver coin. One coin. One single coin. And says, take this for your trouble. It's special. It's a silver coin from my homeland of Havenshine. Did I say Havenshine in my notes? I think I said Havenshine. I probably said.
I protest meekly for a bit and then accept it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, he says, yes, take this with my blessing, my good man. And should you ever be in the region of Havenshine, feel free to look up the estate of myself, Duke Thorncombe, and I'll be more than happy to assist you in it.
Oh, I took you for a native, so at ease you seemed. But where are you staying then, if you're not from here nearby?
Are you kind of walking and talking at this stage, or are you still just because you're still in the middle of kind of a panicking war zone and stuff is still on fire, which Caddy is. In fact, you know what? While you're sort of you're making idle conversation, let's jump back to Cadius and see what's happening with that big old fire. So, Cadius, back over to you.
Sure.
You were talking about heritage moves.
Yeah, so I had sort of a strange idea, might be a little bit out there, but I noticed in the culture background there were ritual scars, and also I already had, from being a fighter, I had scarred skin. So the concept I had is that there would be something that was sort of a mix of unleashing a chaotic rune and honoring a blood oath, or calling upon a blood oath, where they have these ritual scars in the barbarian peoples, representing these sort of ancient, generations-old pacts with various nature spirits and so on. So what I'd like to try and do, and it might be kind of tactless and might anger a few people around here, but I'm going to try and unleash like a gust of cold wind or something, using one of my culture moves. And I imagine because it's chaotic, it may have some unintended consequences.
So who are you calling on a blood oath from? Whose oath is it? Who is it from? Is it from a peer? Because who is it from?
Well, it would be from some sort of a spirit.
A spirit specifically, yeah. Right. So you have a blood oath.
A snow owl, like a magical snow owl or something.
Right. You have a blood oath spirit. You have a blood oath with a snow owl. Did I say that right? Yeah, a blood oath with a snow owl. Cool. Is that common for your people, or is that something specific?
Yeah, it's something that's like I said, it's multiple generations. So every time someone comes of age, there are certain spirits out in the mountains and the woods that they go to and make these pacts and bargains with.
And yours is the owl.
They inscribe the runes associated with them.
Cool. And that's what's kind of inscribed on your skin, these scars, these runes.
Yep.
Cool. So yeah, absolutely. So I would say that you're kind of, I mean, you are calling on a blood oath here, but it's more that you're unleashing a rune, really, isn't it? It's kind of it's more about you're calling a rune one of these runes that's kind of scarred onto your skin, rather than the specifics of calling on a blood oath. I suppose my thinking with the term of call on a blood oath, in terms of how it might work as a move, would be something like you call on an oath of someone to fight for you in battle, like kind
Yep.
of Lord of the Rings, Aragorn summoning the masses to fight for him, and that's like, right, our oath is fulfilled. That would be what I had in. But again, these things
Yeah,
could
I'm
always
sure they
change.
do that too.
Yeah.
And that's why I said it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, but it
Yep.
seems like it's more of the first one, so it doesn't seem
Yes.
like you need to kind of tick both. You don't have to spend 2 holds. You
Oh
only
no,
need to spend
I
1.
wouldn't.
No. So you unleash a rune of chaotic, but yeah, you absolutely don't even need to roll. You rolled earlier when you rolled plus wisdom. So
Yep.
yeah, you spend 1 of your 3 points of hold, and you unleash this rune of chaotic power. So how does that actually look? Do your scars kind of glow? Where does the wind come from?
Yeah, I think it's they probably turn very very white
Hmm.
for a moment, and it's sort of like the old big bad wolf. I just sort of inhale and then let out a gust of air, but it's much larger than you would expect my body to produce, and it's cold as the mountaintops.
Cool. Literally. Awesome. Okay, and you just use that to put out the fire, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so you breathe in this humongous gust of air, and then just like the bellows, you manage to blow out this colossal, almost gale force, freezing cold wind. And it just kind of, it's chaotic. The wind can't be controlled. It's like kind of releasing a tornado almost, or like a miniature tornado, which just, yeah, it absolutely batters the fire away. The fire's away in minutes, in moments even. Um, and and the fire is no longer a problem. But it also kind of reacts around the players as well. It kind of it blows gusts all around the stage, and it throws the players left, right, and centre. It throws these people who are still in their poses, even the halfling, as the fires were licking and reaching around her, still absolute pinnacle of an actress there, just still maintaining her role until your great big gust of wind just blows her straight off her feet. So yes, you've put out the fire, but you've also managed. So they all pick themselves up and whatnot, and kind of scramble to get back into position. But before they do, they're all just death staring at you. And I mean, it's like you might be thinking this, you might not, but it's like it's kind of petty. I mean, no one else is looking at them, and they are purely doing it for the art, right? But they are pissed that you did this, even though you're pretty much the only person even looking at them at this stage. Everyone else is running the other way away from the fire, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. So yes, you put out the fire, and you do it in a supernatural gust of wind, but you do it in a way that even further irks these players. And there you go. The fire's put out. Cool. Cool. So you've got anything else happen after that? Let's kind of sum up a little bit and just recap kind of the aftermath of that. So after you've kind of cleaned up the fire and people start to realize that the fire's been put out and the worries are over, then there would be some, I guess there must be some kind of authorities around, but they were heavily stretched even before any problems broke out. You lost track of Mr. Wolf's Head in the crowd. No sign of him immediately, but the crowds do start to disperse like slowly back in, and the revels do sort of continue onwards. People sort of get back into the swing of things basically, and it's like, oh, okay, so pick up the songs again, and the band starts playing, and things start to get back into the swing of things, and a few of the other nobles who are kind of the leaders kind of slink back onto stage and say, don't worry, everything's taken care of, nothing to worry about. Do you make a point of showing that you were the guy who fixed this? Because no one particularly saw you other than the players, and the players don't want to do you any favors. And so they're like, no, we're not saying anything, we're standing still for our art or whatever. So do you kind of come forward and say, yes, I put out the flames, or do you kind of say, well, all in the day's work?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't really be looking to take credit. I'd actually be looking for the wolf man, so to speak,
Fair enough.
and see if
Okay,
I
well,
can follow up on him.
suffice to say for the moment, you don't find him as the crowds focus back in, but that's not to say
Sure.
that you might not have found him by the time we pick things up again. So that's sort of where you are. You're kind of, again, intermingling with the crowd, keeping a relatively low profile as ever, and keeping an eye out for this other gentleman. Oliver, you're keeping company of this gentleman, the Earl of Havenshine. You're escorting him back, he kind of thinks, well, enough's enough, and that's far too much excitement for one day. So he's drinking wine as he goes, but he's on his way back to his carriage. His carriage, when you get back to it, you've got all these like fine horseless carriages and the fine horses and palastrades and whatnot. His carriage is just regular palfrey, fairly humdrum looking carriage. Compared to his clothing, not a whole lot to sing and dance about, which takes you by surprise a little bit, I suppose. Yeah, he takes you back. He thanks you, and he says, "Right, well, this is where we depart." And he says, "Thank you very much for your troubles." And like I say, he's kind of pressed this coin into your hands as thank you, as payment, and says, "If ever you're in the region of Havenshine, then be sure to look me up."
Well, yeah, I compliment him on his carriage at first. I say, in an era such of this, where everyone's relying on the latest newfangled noisy technologies, it's nice to see someone who respects the traditional ways of moving to and fro. But surely you're not headed to Havenshine this evening after such excitement.
Let's see.
I'm trying to find out if he's staying somewhere local.
Yeah, sure. I'm just trying to think if he would be. Yeah, he would be. But you know what? He's really guarded about this. He's like, "Oh well, I don't know. I did come down here especially, and Havenshine is only a few leagues away. I'm sure it wouldn't take much more than a night for us to get down there, and then I can feel the comfort of being, away from all this trouble and sleeping in my homes. Perhaps I'll just pay the man at the hotel in arrears when I get back."
Indeed.
So he does sort of imply that he is staying somewhere, but he doesn't sort of say where. He's like, "No, I'm gonna crack on."
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, if I find that flask of yours, if it does surface, perhaps I have someone have word sent to you at where with the young lord, maybe.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yes, I'm at number 1, Havenshine. Uh, that's about it. He sort of says, joking. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no. And do you want to spout lore about Havenshine? Do you want to see if you know anything about the town in general that
I
he's
do.
talking about,
Yeah.
or even him himself?
And remind me, this is intelligence, right?
That's intelligence. Yeah,
Ah, not very likely.
not very likely. So you don't particularly know anything about Havenshine. You know it's in Chalcedon, and you can take him at his word that it is probably only kind of, if he set off now, this is now, it's probably 11ish. So with Masque at midnight, we're not even at midnight yet. It's probably 11ish, and you imagine if he did set off now, as he says, it might not be the most comfortable of rides, but you can imagine he probably, if you could take him at his word, he'd be there by the morning, and I guess he's going to sleep it off.
Sure.
Shine just being a relatively local town, you don't really know anything about it. You probably spotted the name on the map, so you can say, "Oh yes, it's there on the far side of the river," or whatever.
All right. Well, I'd hope to turn that into something a little more, but he being so guarded, I'll have to see if I can make some fortunes elsewhere before the alcohol wears off.
Okay, cool. Let's see. I'm in two minds. You know what? I think, as much as I'm enjoying this, I do think we need to call it a night, sadly, because
Indeed.
it is now getting on for 2 o'clock. And while it is going quite well, I know that there's going to be a tipping point where it's like, I've probably gone for about like half an hour, which is good because we need to wrap up the session anyway. And then after that, it's just going to, crash out.
Follow the Duke's good example. And
Yeah. So
enjoy
this
the
is,
girl.
yeah, pretty much. Travel throughout the night. So, a Masque at midnight. It isn't midnight, and we didn't finish the Masque. But other than that, the session notes went pretty well. So perhaps we will pick this up in a future session, maybe at a weekend, if I can squeeze that in at a time that suits. Because then, of course, we don't have to worry too much about timings and whatnot. But we'll have a chat about that. We'll have a chat about that after we go off air. So. Cool. Okay, let's call it a night at that then. Let's call it a night as for now, the revelry continues, and then either we'll continue it and we'll come back to it in a future session, or if you guys want to carry on your characters in a future session, we could always fast forward past this and just sum up what might have happened and go from there. Actually, no, while I think about it, point of interest, I have written up some notes about sort of what's happened next. Would you guys be okay if I did finish writing those up and put them online as kind of a draft document if I didn't necessarily release it as a full-on Patreon release? Would you guys, because if you do have a problem with that, I'm happy to leave it for a little while, spoilers and everything. Obviously, you don't have to read the thing, but, you
I'm
know,
fine with that. No, that's fine. Yeah.
That's okay.
okay. So what I might do then is I might leave it at that, because we did cover some of the stuff I had in mind, like the NPCs and the general intentions. Um, and I might put the document on more or less as written. I might get some feedback. If anyone else is still watching this, Patreon followers of mine, then I'll put this on as like a Google Docs as opposed to the full-on PDF, and maybe I'll let people sort of comment on that as they see fit, and then that can be something that can be wrapped up into a full PDF for sort of the following week. So we'll take things from there and see how that plays out. Cool. Okay. So with all that in mind, for now the revelry continues. The adventures of Cadius and Oliver continue, but for now, let's do our end of session moves. First things first, I kind of normally, technically, you have to make camp in order to level up, but because it's end of session, I normally let people level up if they have enough experience to do so. So let's see, our end of session.
Now, do I need
Bonds.
to be successful at avoiding detection or infiltrate a location, or do I just need to attempt it?
Broadly speaking, you need to be successful.
Okay.
You need to have done it. You need to have avoided detection or infiltrated a location. I kind of get where you're going with that. I mean, that there was the intention there, but if it didn't work, it didn't work. The key thing with an alignment is that it's about what you're trying to do. It's about, you've probably seen on other character classes made by other people that alignment's often replaced with like ideas like drive or ambition or ideas like that. So alignment is the thing that your character is trying to do as a rule. And sometimes after the first session, it turns out that, well, actually infiltrating locations and the sort of thing isn't actually as important to me as helping people out or pickpocketing them. So alignments can shift from one session to the next.
Nice.
One thing you can do, if you feel like you haven't infiltrated a location this session, is you can shift from, I think that's the neutral, isn't it? That's neutral. So what you can do is you can shift from one iteration of neutral, the thieves iteration of neutral, to another class's iteration of neutral. And these are listed, I do have them listed somewhere. I think it's
I think I'm inclined to leave it, actually, just to see how he evolves.
Okay. Fair enough. So I'd say for now that you didn't really hit your alignment this session, but certainly that's something that might happen in the future. If you feel like it's something you might shift away from, then that can be a gradual thing or it can be quite a sudden thing. Cadius, what about you? Your alignment is to defeat a worthy opponent. Again, we had more of a kind of a social thing this time, so there wasn't really a worthy opponent to defeat. Again, same question sort of put to you. If you feel like the defeat of worthy opponents isn't necessarily the be-all and end-all of what your character's trying to do each time, then feel free to instead of taking the point of experience, which you wouldn't be able to really take today anyway, shift your neutral alignment to another character's neutral alignment. It could even be infiltrate a location, although it wouldn't make sense for a fighter, but that is the sort of idea that you can be sort of shifting things around like that. I'm trying to remember where it is. I think it's under like equipment randomly. No, playing the game. Here
Somewhere.
we go. Playing the game, resolving bonds, alignment, changing alignment. So neutral might be something like some sort of generic neutral descriptions might be make an ally of someone powerful, defeat a personally important foe, learn a secret about an enemy, or uncover a hidden truth. So these are examples of neutral alignments that you might find more interesting than the default for both of you.
I'm pretty happy with mine, to be honest.
Cool. Okay. So no alignments hit this session. Bonds. Did someone hit bonds? We've got 4 bonds. Someone must have hit something this session. So the idea with bonds is basically you look at each of you look at your own bonds, and if you feel like you've resolved one of them, i.e. you've hit it this session, you've done something that relates to it, you ask the other person. So for example, Oliver, you might say, Cadius, do you feel like I feel like you had my back when things go wrong because of X? Do you agree? If Cadius agrees, then you can consider that bond resolved. You can keep it on there, but you can change it in some way, and you mark experience. Does that make sense? Is that
It does. I'm
yeah?
looking over
Cool.
mine, and I think, I mean, I think we're finding our feet with these characters, and I didn't manage, I don't think, to work any of these in, and certainly in a way that feels resolved.
Sure.
Like some of these relate to our history together, and some of them relate to our intentions, like that we have a con running,
Mm.
and I don't think we've matured that in this session at all.
Another aspect of so bonds tend to get resolved, and one aspect of them getting resolved is that they might simply not be relevant anymore. You might simply think, well, for example, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you might think, for example, so you mentioned about the con running. You might think, well, yeah, we are running cons, but it's not like an important aspect of our characters. We've kind of moved past that. You know, that is actually kind of, even though you didn't do it this
I
session, you
see.
might think, you can look at it and think, no, we don't really do that anymore. And if Cadius agrees, then you can mark that as resolved, change it, and mark experience. So, and generally, when you change a bond, you change it into something that's similar, but kind of the next step on. So it's like, well, again, I don't know. It might be something like Cadius I have a con running, but Cadius keeps running off to survey the area under trees. You know, that'd be a super silly and ridiculous and overly specific way of doing it. But you see what I mean? You shift it in a way that relates to what happened before.
Yeah. I think these still all have potential as they're written. At least mine do.
Cool. Cadius, what do you think about yours? What have we got here? We've
Yeah,
got
I think I'm in the same boat. I mean, um, I mean, none of them really applied tonight. I don't think, but they're certainly interesting.
playing devil's advocate. I worry about the ability of Oliver to survive in the dungeon, and Oliver is soft, but I'll make them hard like me. He did dive into a fire and pull a guy out.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
he was drunk at the time, but he did do it.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think, Michael? Just
The
your
thing is,
character.
this can go. You can see me in a new light, or you can stubbornly see me as the scrawny, pale guy in strange clothing who looks completely unsuited to every environment that, as you know, as you see the threats. And like, you know,
Absolutely.
even when your younger sibling is 45 and has 3 kids, you think,
Yeah.
it's still my little brother or whatever. So it could go either way.
Yeah, I think I mean, I wasn't really expecting you to follow me into the crowd, so that definitely would have evened things out a bit. Like, you're charging towards the same danger I was. So, yeah, yeah, I think that applies.
Cool. So that would be Oliver is soft, but I'll make them hard like me.
Yeah,
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So it sounds like that is it. You don't have to. Well, like I say, you can kind of modify it basically. You're writing a new bond in based around whatever you like. And it's a good idea to keep writing new bonds in because the more, as you say, Michael, we're very much finding our feet with these things. And it's always the way in Dungeon World. You always have to find your feet, especially with bonds. Bonds are a really tricky thing. And I know a lot of players actually don't write any bonds at all until after the very first session
Oh,
because
wow.
they want to find their feet. Um, but hell, why not write them in, right? They're there, we may as well have a go with them. Yeah, feel free to write another one in. You don't have to do it right now, Cadius, because I don't want
Sure.
to put you on the spot. But have a think about it and write something in the spreadsheet in your own time and add it to us in a Google form. Cool. And mark experience, of course. I think it's like your only bit of experience today, isn't it, as well?
Yeah,
Cool.
there's the questions too,
Exactly,
but
yeah.
I
So
don't know if
now
we've
the questions.
met any
Absolutely
of them.
right. So, and questions are an easy win for the first session because did we learn something new and important about the world? Yes, everything. That's the beauty of doing one shots and first sessions. You get to answer that, but you get a free XP. You get a free XP just for turning up and learning and saying something fun about the world. Um, to be fair, actually, just as an aside, that tends to apply quite a lot. The more you say stuff about the world as a player or as a GM, well, not as a GM because you don't have XP, but the more as a player you kind of put stuff into the world, that's finding something new and important. You've actually kind of fudged it almost. It feels almost like fudging it because you're saying, hey, you know what? There's a cadre of dwarves living over there. It's like, okay, why? Because there is. And it's like, there you go. We've learned something new and important about the world. You've just randomly told us there's a cadre of dwarves over there. It's win-win because then the GM gets to say, okay, cool. Well, the dwarves are going to fight you because of reasons. So, it gives the GM more fuel for the fire, but it also gives you XP in the process.
It's interesting because it's all relative. what is the world? Well, for the world for us is basically this small community of well-to-do people.
It is so far, yeah, absolutely. And of course, what tends to happen in these games is the world tends to expand or move around.
Hmm.
If you're moving from dungeon to dungeon or region to region, the games I tend to play move from region to region, as you pretty much have read from my PDFs. So as we moved from in my games, it sort of moved from Umberto, this kind of Arabian Nights themed area, to Green Scar, which was a jungle area. Green Scar thing was interesting actually because after I finished doing the Umberto stuff, I just put to the players, it's like, oh, you've heard of some rumors of some great treasure somewhere. Where was it? And one of the players just said, a jungle. That was pretty much the starting point. So it's cool. We made a jungle, and many moons later, I've made the Green Scar. So that's again, you're learning something new and important about the world, just as an afterthought of saying, hey, there's a jungle over here. Um, so yeah, you tend to move on and go on from there. Right. So we've learned something new and important about the world. Did we loot a memorable treasure? Yeah, in a way we did, because
You
that's
may
Hip
have.
Flask. It doesn't have to be memorable in this case. Memorable enemy and memorable treasure doesn't have to mean magic or big monster. Memorable enemy doesn't necessarily mean the boss. It means memorable. It means that it might come back to haunt you, or just might be fondly remembered by the players and the characters for times to come.
A
So it's
much
like,
better
oh,
vehicle for some oil of Taggart is a
right.
returned flask.
There you go. Absolutely, absolutely. So it's very memorable because that hip flask is going to be something that's going to have ramifications down the line, I expect. Or it's just going to be a nice memento of the time you were nearly caught on fire. Um,
Does the
so
fire count as a notable enemy?
I'm seriously tempted. What do you guys think? Yeah, it was certainly the most notable enemy today. Um,
I I don't know that it matters. Uh,
You know,
you
mm,
do what you want.
I guess not, because although it's notable in some regards because it's the first time we kind of saw your oath powers at work, but at
Mhm.
the same time it's not the last time we'll see that, so it's
It
not
would have
No.
been more
necessarily.
notable had a number of people burned and he
Yeah,
visibly rescued the few survivors.
yeah,
Yeah, but they
agreed.
just were sort of nonplussed about it.
Absolutely dedicated folk.
I find it interesting that I didn't even see that even out of the corner of my eye. So this
Nope.
is kind of one day I'm going to realize you're Superman.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I love the fact that that hasn't come up yet. You're just a scarred dude.
you may have seen it, but you may not remember it tomorrow.
Yeah. Indeed.
Good point. Good point. Okay, so we've learned something new and important about the world, and we've looted a memorable treasure. So that's 2 experience for both of you guys. So,
Sure.
if you've got experience equal to your level, which is 2 plus 7, so 9 altogether, then you level up.
I'm still a few short.
You're a few short. You're
Despite
both
my
a few
run of
short.
bad luck at the beginning.
Yeah, only 5. It builds up quick. It's a good curve. It's a good curve.
Oh
It's
yeah,
Dungeon
it's
World.
good.
Yeah, good. Okay then. Well, unless there's any other final points about the game or any final things you kind of want to sign off on or like leave the characters in, then we'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Lovely, my
All right.
pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for that, guys. And yeah, well, we'll see how this goes a few ways. If anyone watching this is interested in joining in part 2, maybe being another reveler. There we go. I did even say it this time. Then we can have a chat about that on Google Plus or on Patreon. Preferably Google Plus. I'm always on Google Plus, so feel free to message me on there. And like I say, I'll kind of finish up the notes kind of as written with a few extra bits from what we've done today, and I'll put it as a Google Docs document, and that kind of leave people to comment on it, and we can add some extra feedback and see how you get on with that. Cool. But for now, thanks guys, and we'll sign off now. Thanks very much.
All
Night.
righty. Thank you.